Have you ever written a song? I wrote a song this week for Mrs. Eisenman's class because they're learning all about the blues. So I had to join the party and write a blues song. But rather than talking about blues as a style of music this week, I wanted to use the opportunity from my songwriting experience to talk about songwriting and composing with you. Before I show you how I recorded that song, let's take a quick listen to the Quarantine Quartet play Quarantine Blues. See if you see anybody familiar in the band.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. I'm Mr. George, and we're the Quarantine Quartet, and we're here live on the inside, safe at home, with a tune that we like to call the Quarantine Blues. You ready?
Been stuck in the house since mid-March with nowhere left to go. I thought the only reason we got off from school was snow. I got the quarantine blues. I got the quarantine blues. Staying 6 feet away from you. I got the quarantine blues. Now I got my toilet paper and I got my paper towels, but I'd rather be out with my friends than stuck on this here couch. I got the quarantine blues. I got the quarantine blues. Staying 6 feet away from you. I got the quarantine blues.
So I used a program called GarageBand to record this song. It's a program made by Apple, and it's available on Mac computers and iOS devices like iPads and iPhones. Before I even go to GarageBand though, I usually sit down with my guitar, a pen, and a sheet of paper, and I play a couple things to plan out my song. I'll play some chords that I like, and I'll write down some words that I think might go along with it, and I'll hum a little tune that maybe sounds good with what I'm playing on the guitar. I write down the words and the music to remind myself how to play it later, and that piece of paper becomes my recipe for my recording of the song. And that's an important idea here, the idea of a recipe. Just like any good baker has a recipe for when they're baking a cake, a musician has to have a good recipe for the recording and writing of a song. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of steps for making a good musical recipe for some songs that you might write on your own.
Hey, all you music makers out there. We're here in the Music Making Test Kitchen. We're going to talk about the recipe that you need to make a great song. So, I got my recipe here, and it says that we're going to start with 1 cup of drum beats. You take your cup of drum beats, you put it in your mixing bowl. Boom! Next step, you got to take your bass lines. Free-range bass lines from your local farmer's market are the best ones to go for. And our recipe is calling for 1.5 cups of bass lines today, and I'm going to eyeball that. The last step in our recipe here, before we add the vocals, is adding some great guitar lick. And our recipe is calling for just a tablespoon. The key to a great sounding song is a great mix, so give it a good mix. The last step in getting your song put together is having a good set of vocals added into your song. Our recipe is calling for 2 sets of vocals here, and we're going to add them in now. And then again, once you add your vocals, give it a good mix, and then you're going to put it on low heat, let it simmer. Put the lid on, and let it low and slow. Let it groove for about 15 minutes. We'll come back and check on that in a little bit. Alright, it's about 15 minutes, and we're going to check to see how our song sounds. It's sounding pretty good. I think it's done. Come on over and check it out. Our song is done, and we have a wonderful sounding song I think it's gonna be a hit. Enjoy your song making, and see you in the next one.
When I go to record a song by myself, I usually start by making a recording of myself playing guitar and singing at the same time. This is something called a scratch track, and it's very similar to writing a rough draft of a writing piece you might do in English class. This is my recipe for how I like to record songs. I start with my scratch track, add the drums, add the bass, add guitar, maybe some keyboard instruments, and finally the vocals. That's my recipe for how I like to record a song. You can come up with your own recipe, but this is what works best for me. Welcome to what my computer looks like. We're here in GarageBand, and I wanted to show you what my recipe sounds like when I go through each of the tracks that I've included here in Quarantine Blues. So our first step in the recipe is a scratch track. So here's what my scratch track sounds like. It's me playing acoustic guitar and singing with not my best singing voice, but it's just to outline what the song will sound like throughout the whole recording process. And here's what that sounds like. Okay, so you can hear that the guitar is super loud and my voice is kind of tucked in the background, and I'm clearly not singing like I would if I wanted you to listen to it, but this helps me record all the rest of the instruments. So with my scratch track, then I went and recorded the drums. So when I add the drum sounds in, here's what the drums in the scratch track sounds like. So now I have a little bit more of a steady beat, something for my other instruments to interact with, and I can build my song out even more. It's starting to sound like a song. If I add in the bass sounds now with all the scratch track and the drums I have recorded, here's what that sounds like. At this point, I'll add in the acoustic guitar, and you'll hear two acoustic guitars with my silly singing. If I take out the scratch track, now it sounds like just an instrumental song, a song with just instruments. So it's coming together now. With that, I went and added in the vocals, and you have a full song. Been stuck in the house since mid-March with nowhere left to go. If I were to solo each instrument, you'll be able to hear how I recorded each one individually. Been stuck in the house since mid-March with no only reason we got off. After quarantine, basics. I got the quarantine. Now I got. So all of those sounds together, recorded in that order, make up my whole song, and that's my recipe for how I like to record. I'd like you to try to write your own song this week too. It doesn't have to be as complicated as mine or even have any words, but I'd like to show you an easy way to write your very own song that you'll be able to share. We're going to head over to the Chrome Music Lab and use their Song Maker tool to have you try your hand at being your very own songwriter and composer. Let's go. All right, let's talk about how you can make your own song in Chrome Music Lab. So on my screen now, I have Chrome Music Lab, and I'm going to navigate in my browser to musiclab.chromeexperiments.com. And I'll have that up on the screen for you to take a look at, and I'll also be linked in Google Classroom. And we're going to click on the big smiley face Song Maker. That's the first box we have, and that's going to open up our Song Maker. When it opens, let's talk about how you're going to get started doing this. Remember, a good recipe is set through step by step. In my recipe, I like starting with drums. So this is how I would build a drum beat in Chrome Music Lab. The drums are set up by the circles in the bottom boxes, and you can adjust your drum sounds by choosing different options here down near the play button. So I'm going to make this an electronic song today. And when I click one of these buttons, you're going to hear some beats show up. Depending on where you click, the beat is created. So right now, the bottom sound is a big booming bass drum. The next circle set up is probably like a snare drum sound. So I want a boom, tap sound. So I'm going to go bass drum, snare drum, bass drum, snare drum. You can make whatever pattern you want, no right or wrong answer, and feel free to experiment. Right now, I'm just kind of clicking around, but I know that this type of pattern is going to give me something that I'm going to want to bob my head to. Let's hear what that sounds like by hitting the big play button right here. Great. That sounds like a Grammy-winning beat. So the next step would do, if I have my drums, I now want to add a bass sound, a lower sound, something that the audience is going to lock into and really get grooving. So our lower sounds are going to be lower on the grid, closest to the bass drum and snare drum sounds that we did in our circles and triangle section. So let's just click the lowest box. Oh, a low sound. If I went a little higher, again, just kind of clicking random. And if I didn't like that sound, right now it's kind of set to a xylophone sound. Just like we changed the drum sounds here, we could change it to a different sound. And see what this drum and bass line sounds like. Wonderful. Let's talk about how you could add a melody to the top of this sound with what you have in your recipe. We have drum, bass, and now we need something in the middle. We're going to add another sound into our recipe, which is going to be higher up on the screen. So I like composing for this next step above the big blue center line. Why can't I move this out? There we go. And let's see what that sounds like. Awesome. I'm happy with that for this example. When you're ready to save your song, you're going to go down to the bottom right corner and click Save. And this is where you'll be able to share it either with me or with somebody else that you might want to email it to or download the recording. So if you want to copy and paste this to share it with me in Google Classroom or in Flipgrid, you could copy the link by clicking Copy Link, and then you would paste it over in Google Classroom. If you want to download the song, you can download it here as a WAV file, which is similar to an MP3. Now, let's say you have your song made and you wanted to add some words to it that you came up with. There's no way to record your vocals here in SongMaker. So it would be something that you would click play and then sing to, either recording into a phone or an iPad or some other electronic device. If you're looking for ways to record vocals, there's lots of programs out there that we can talk about that allow you to do that, GarageBand being one of them. SongMaker here is all about getting you through the process of recording and writing a song. So starting with the drum sounds, adding a bass sound, and then some type of melody gives you the basic building blocks of songwriting
and recording that you'll be able to use when you're ready for some more advanced stuff.
Let's talk about what you might be playing this week on your instrument and from your lesson book. I'd like to take a break from using smart music this week and try something new. This week, I'd like you to look over the practice assignments in Google Classroom and choose one song from that list for your grade level. And I'd like you to get really, really good at that one song this week. I'll explain more in the coming weeks about why these songs might be particularly important, but I'd like you to practice these songs and get them sounding really good, like concert level good. So I have some songs from your lesson book listed in our practice doc, and I've also uploaded the accompaniment tracks that you can put on a pair of headphones and listen to or play from your computer speakers. I know, I'm asking you to do a lot this week, but this is my third and final request. In addition to our songwriting and our practicing this week, I'd like to start trying Flipgrid with you. I feel like one of the most fun things that we have in our music lessons, aside from playing music, is getting to see you and all of our friends in our class each week. And without being in school to do that, Flipgrid is a way that we'll be able to see each other, say hello, and get back to some of those things that we really like about our music lessons. So on Flipgrid this week, go and post a hello and tell me about something musical or creative that you've done while you've been at home with your families. You could also share your Chrome Music Lab song that you're going to make this week on Flipgrid if you're feeling up to it. You could take a video of that song and post it, or you could copy and paste the link into your video post when you say hello. So I hope to see you over on Flipgrid and playing in Chrome Music Lab with Songmaker and trying your hand at some of our practice tracks this week for some of those really important songs that are coming up in the month of May. See you in the next one.